You know that feeling, right? That soul-crushing weight when you are absolutely swamped,
Mm-hmm.
just buried under a mountain of tasks, notifications pinging nonstop, the relentless hum of stress like vibrating through your entire being.
Yeah.
And what's the gut reaction? Always. It's just grit your teeth and push through.
Right. Head down.
Head down, eyes forward, ignore everything else until the storm passes. You tell yourself, joy is a luxury for later, something you'll earn after the deadline is met, after the exams are over.
After you finally dug yourself out. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a profoundly common trap, I think. We fall into it so easily. We see pleasure, relaxation,
Yeah.
anything that feels like joy as, well, almost irresponsible when there's so much pressure.
Yeah, like you're not taking it seriously enough.
Exactly. If you allow yourself to feel good, maybe you're slacking off somehow.
Absolutely. Like you have to endure a certain amount of suffering just to prove you're resilient. But
Right.
what if that whole approach is completely counterproductive? What if pushing through, ignoring the exhaustion and anxiety actually makes the stress worse in the long run?
Right.
And critically, what if finding moments of joy isn't some luxury you postpone, but it's actually a fundamental tool you need right now, like smack dab in the middle of all the chaos?
That's precisely the question we're tackling in this deep dive.
Mm.
We've pulled together insights from a whole range of material health research, psychological studies, perspectives on well-being to really dig into this connection.
Okay.
Our mission today is to understand the surprising role joy plays in building resilience when you're stressed, and maybe uncover some practical, actionable ways you can weave it into your life, even when you feel like you have absolutely no time or energy.
Okay, let's start by unpacking this idea, this pervasive thing about postponing joy. The material we looked at really highlights how deeply ingrained this is for so many of us. We get stuck in this mindset where joy is a prize, like awarded after you've paid your dues in stress and hardship.
It's almost a form of delayed gratification taken to, well, an unhealthy extreme, isn't it?
Yeah.
We sort of internalize this belief that feeling good while things are tough is somehow, I don't know, a sign of weakness or maybe even selfishness.
Right. And we saw some really striking examples of this in the sources, like one personal account that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this was someone who just lived by that push through anything mantra. They described this relentless drive, just constantly overriding intense anxiety, physical exhaustion, even moments of really profound sadness.
Wow.
Like taking major final exams while on painkillers, literally crying in a bathroom stall at work only to splash water on their face and go straight back out there.
Believing in that moment that was resilience.
Yeah.
That strength meant suppressing pain, ignoring your limits, never showing vulnerability or asking for help.
Exactly. But then looking back later, the realization hits hard about the immense toll that approach took on their mental health, their physical health. True resilience, it turns out, involves something much more integrated. It's not just about enduring. It's about enduring while also maintaining your capacity to actually function and recover.
That makes sense.
And this plays out in less dramatic but still damaging ways for most of us, right? It's canceling that coffee with a friend because you're too busy.
Done that.
Skipping the walk, clears your head, or feeling that little pang of guilt for enjoying a quiet evening when you know someone else is struggling. We actively push away the very things that could actually replenish us.
Which brings us to where this deep dive gets, well, I think really interesting. The core insight, when you distill it all down, is that joy isn't a reward waiting for you after the stress subsides.
Okay.
It is, in fact, a vital component of the resilience that helps you effectively cope with stress in the first place.
Joy is a form of resilience. Let's just sit with that for a second. It's not the opposite of stress. It's a tool for stress.
Precisely. And the science backs this up, quite significantly, actually. Think about what happens to your body when you're stressed. Your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, right?
Right, the fight or flight.
Exactly. You get that surge of stress hormones, cortisol, epinephrine, and they elevate your heart rate, constrict your blood vessels, raise your blood pressure. It's designed for, short-term emergencies.
Yeah, saber-toothed tiger stuff.
Yeah, totally. But chronic stress keeps that system activated, putting immense strain on your cardiovascular system and other bodily functions over time.
Okay, so how does joy How does it intervene in that physical response?
Well, small moments of positive emotion, moments of genuine joy, or even just contentment, they activate the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the rest and digest side.
Okay, the counterbalance.
Exactly. It helps counterbalance the stress response.
Okay.
The research we looked at even points to specific activities. Spending as little as, say, 10 to 30 minutes in a green space, even just a city park, has been shown to significantly lower cortisol levels.
Wow, 10 minutes.
Yeah. These moments help your body downregulate, recover, and just return to a more balanced state.
That's fascinating that it has such a measurable physical impact.
Right.
And mentally, too, because when I'm stressed, my brain definitely feels like it's stuck in a loop, just replaying worst-case scenarios over and over.
Absolutely. Psychologically, stress and negative emotions can create these really powerful feedback loops. You feel anxious,
Yeah.
so maybe you withdraw, which then makes you feel more isolated and anxious, and it just spirals.
Yeah, the downward spiral.
Right. But positive emotions like joy or even just feeling content can actually break those cycles. They can introduce a different perspective, sort of widen your attentional focus
Okay.
and kickstart upward spirals of well-being, fostering connection and a sense of possibility. It's really about shifting that internal state,
Yeah.
altering the landscape of your mind.
Shifting the inner landscape, okay, that feels absolutely crucial because stress isn't just an external pressure. It's so much about how you perceive it, how you process those pressures internally.
Exactly. And this is where understanding concepts from fields like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, becomes incredibly helpful.
Right.
The fundamental principle there is that your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are all interconnected. They're in this dynamic loop. Stress isn't just triggered by external events. It's fueled and amplified by these unhelpful, often automatic negative thought patterns.
Like assuming the absolute worst possible outcome, even when it's actually pretty unlikely.
That's a classic one, catastrophic thinking.
Or
Taking one single negative event and just concluding that everything is bad, overgeneralization. Or seeing situations in really rigid black and white terms with no shades of gray. CBT teaches you to become more of an observer of these thoughts, to recognize them for what they are, which is often just interpretations, not necessarily objective truths.
And then the power comes from being able to sort of challenge those thoughts, question them.
Precisely. You learn to question their validity, their accuracy, and frankly, their helpfulness. Are they serving you? Then you can work to reframe them with more balanced, more realistic perspectives. It's about gaining some agency over your internal narrative, so you're not just passively swept away by every negative thought that pops into your head.
This ties in so strongly with expectations, doesn't it? I mean, when our expectations of how things should be clash with the reality of how they actually are, that gap that's often filled with emotional distress, right? Disappointment, frustration, anxiety.
Without a doubt, unrealistic expectations are major stress amplifiers. And let's be honest, social media with its curated highlight reels doesn't exactly help.
Oh, definitely not.
It can create these impossible standards. The sources really emphasize the importance of cultivating adaptability and deliberately setting realistic expectations. It's not about lowering your standards across the board, but about aligning your expectations with the present reality of a stressful situation. Journaling is actually suggested as a practical tool here. Writing down your thoughts can help you identify those expectation-based thought patterns and see where they might be causing unnecessary friction.
Okay, so we need to manage our thoughts, adjust our expectations. What about how we actually treat ourselves when we're in the thick of stress? Because that's often when the self-criticism just ramps right up.
That leads us straight to the practice of self-compassion. This is absolutely fundamental, and it's often misunderstood, I think.
How so?
Well, it's not about pity or just letting yourself off the hook for everything. It's really about treating yourself with the same kindness, the same understanding, the same support you would offer a dear friend who is struggling.
That's a good way to put it.
It's about acknowledging that difficult moments, pain, imperfection, they're just part of the shared human experience rather than something you need to suppress or beat yourself up over.
So instead of thinking, I shouldn't feel this stressed or, ugh, I'm handling this so badly, it's more like, wow, this is really hard right now, and it's okay that I'm finding it difficult.
Exactly that. And it's a deliberate practice. You build it over time, like building any other muscle. One concept from the sources that really resonated with me is this idea of backdraft.
Backdraft, like in a fire.
Yes, that analogy is perfect. Sometimes when you start practicing self-compassion, when you kind of open the door to your own pain or difficult feelings, with kindness and acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
it might feel like those feelings actually intensify initially.
Huh.
Like the backdraft of oxygen rushing into a fire makes it flare up suddenly.
Huh. So it can feel worse before it feels better.
For some people, initially, yes, because you might have been pushing those feelings down or ignoring them for so long.
Right.
But acknowledging the pain with kindness is a crucial part of the healing process. It's about making space for those difficult feelings so they can eventually dissipate. And in doing so, you make space for other feelings like relief, peace, and ultimately, joy. And simple self-compassion acts can start really small. Maybe just a supportive hand on your chest, speaking kindly to yourself internally, or consciously changing a critical thought to a more supportive one.
Changing that internal dialogue is just so powerful. That connects back perfectly to that anecdote we saw about the stressful train journey.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
It was such a vivid illustration of how you can consciously shift that inner landscape just through perspective.
It really was. And this scenario was so relatable. Starting the day already exhausted from lack of sleep, then getting hit with minor annoyances, ticket problems, the specific coffee you wanted wasn't available, a crowded train. It'd be so easy to just let that snowball into a completely miserable experience, confirming that whole today is terrible narrative.
Yeah, write the whole day off.
Right. But the story described a deliberate choice. Despite the initial grumpiness and discomfort, the person actively started looking for things to notice and appreciate,
Okay.
acknowledging the earlier work they were proud of completing, realizing they did get to the station on time despite feeling rushed, feeling a small sense of accomplishment for resolving the ticket issue.
Little wins.
Little wins, finding a delicious pastry, even if it wasn't the ideal coffee pairing, losing themselves for a bit in a gripping book.
And crucially, noticing the external world despite the internal stress, like observing stunning views outside the window, anticipating the simple, pure joy of being greeted by their cat when they got home.
Right. The external circumstances of the journey didn't fundamentally change. But by consciously redirecting attention, by basically training the brain to seek out and register these little pockets of positive experience, despite our natural negativity bias, the internal experience was transformed. It wasn't that the stress just vanished, but the journey became punctuated by these moments of genuine relief and quiet joy.
It really demonstrates that joy isn't just something that passively happens to you when circumstances are perfect. It's an active practice you can cultivate, even when things are difficult.
Exactly.
That's such a powerful takeaway. Okay, so shifting our inner landscape, managing thoughts, expectations, self-compassion, that's one pillar. The other is about concrete actions, right? What can you actually do to invite moments of joy and relief into your life when you're stressed? The source has offered a whole wealth of practical strategies.
Yeah, and the emphasis really seemed to be on accessibility and starting small.
Yeah.
You don't need grand gestures or huge blocks of free time. Even just 5 minutes can make a tangible difference.
Okay, let's talk about the physical first. Movement in nature kept coming up again and again.
Yes. Regular physical activity is obviously a well-established stress reliever, releasing endorphins.
Mm-hmm.
But time in nature is highlighted as uniquely potent. It goes beyond just exercise. Simply being in a natural environment, even a small urban park or just a tree-lined street, seems to have profound effects on reducing rumination, that negative looping thought pattern, boosting mood, and lowering those stress hormones like cortisol. The sources suggest even microdoses are beneficial.
Microdoses of nature. I like that.
Yeah. And there's an interesting point about perspective, too. Looking out at a distant horizon or getting up to a higher vantage point can literally broaden your visual perspective, which can sometimes help your mental perspective, making problems feel a little less overwhelming in the moment.
That makes sense. And breathing, that's got to be the ultimate anywhere, anytime tool.
Absolutely. It's such an immediate way to engage your parasympathetic nervous system. Simple, focused breathing, slow, deep breaths, maybe counting to 4 or 5 on the inhale through the nose, holding briefly, and then slowly exhaling through the mouth for a slightly longer count. It can quickly lower your heart rate and induce a sense of calm. It's like an anchor you can return to throughout the day.
Okay. And engaging your senses seems to be another key area for finding those micro moments of relief or joy.
Definitely. Our senses are such powerful connectors to the present moment, and they can be sources of simple pleasure. Tactile sensations, for example, cuddling a pet or a loved one, releases oxytocin, that bonding hormone, which directly counteracts stress. Even something really simple like mindfully applying lotion, just paying attention to the feel on your skin, can be a small act of self-care and a connection back to your body.
And mindful eating, right? Putting away the screens and just actually savoring your food for a change.
Exactly. That sounds so basic, but truly engaging with the sensory experience of a meal, the taste, smells, textures, temperature, it grounds you in the present in a way that distracts you from that stress loop.
Yeah.
And then there's play and hobbies. This is a huge one, engaging in activities purely for the inherent pleasure of doing them.
The sources used a wonderful phrase, didn't they? Describing play as the opposite of stress.
Yes, because it's often purposeless in a productive sense. It's done for its own sake. And this is key because it helps you lose track of time and self-consciousness, offering a genuine mental escape. Hobbies are consistently linked to reduce stress, improve well-being.
Right.
And they can offer opportunities for social connection, too, if they're group-based. You can be creative here, integrate playfulness into mundane tasks like dancing while you tidy up, or use hobbies for micro breaks, listen to a favorite piece of music, read a few pages, doodle something.
Simple self-care, too, right?
Yeah.
Like just taking a bath, listening to a podcast, maybe getting a massage if that's possible, anything that sort of nourishes you.
Anything that signals to yourself, my well-being matters, even right now. Journaling also fits here not just for identifying thought patterns, but as a positive outlet for processing feelings or even listing things you're grateful for, which can shift perspective. And we absolutely can't overlook social connection. Actively seeking out time with people you care about is such a powerful buffer against stress.
And there was that specific point about seeking out joyful friends. I thought that was interesting.
Yes. Emotions are contagious, right? While supportive friends are absolutely essential when you're down, sometimes spending time with people who naturally have a more positive outlook or who are just really engaged in activities they love can genuinely lift your own spirits.
Yeah, you sort of catch it.
Exactly. And combining connection with other practices, like, say, going for a walk in nature with a friend, you kind of double dip on the benefits.
Okay, so lots of practical ideas, but the biggest hurdle people always bring up is time. This all sounds great, but I just don't have the time when I'm this stressed.
And the sources address this directly. It really requires a shift in perspective. Instead of looking for some large chunk of free time that, let's be honest, probably won't magically appear.
Right.
Look at your week and you find 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. It definitely involves practicing saying no to non-essential demands that just eat up your time and energy.
Okay, boundary setting.
Yeah, and becoming aware of autopilot time. How much time do you maybe spend scrolling aimlessly on screens that could potentially be reclaimed for a micro moment of joy or relief? It's about integrating these practices into the fabric of your day, not just scheduling them as separate events that are the first things to get canceled when stress inevitably hits.
Right, weaving them in. So pulling all of this together from our deep dive, the central message seems really clear. Finding moments of joy when you are deeply stressed isn't about being irresponsible or ignoring the problem or just pretending everything is fine.
Not at all. It's fundamentally about building and maintaining your capacity to handle the stress. It is, quite literally, as we said, a form of resilience, and it involves those two key components. Consciously shifting your inner landscape, managing your thoughts, aligning your expectations more realistically, cultivating that self-compassion.
And it involves actively incorporating small, consistent, replenishing actions into your life, engaging with nature and movement, utilizing breathing techniques, connecting with your senses, prioritizing hobbies and play, and nurturing your social connections.
Exactly. Joy isn't some passive state you just wait for external circumstances to grant you when things finally get easy. It's an active practice you cultivate, a habit you train your brain and body to embrace.
Yeah.
Doing so doesn't magically eliminate stress, obviously, but it absolutely makes the tough times more navigable, builds your inner strength, and paradoxically, it seems to make the good times feel even richer and more profound when they do come along.
That reframes everything, really. It's not about waiting for the pressure cooker to cool down completely to find relief. It's about finding ways to release some steam and find moments of lightness while the pressure is still on.
Perfectly put. And as you begin to explore this, especially maybe that self-compassion piece, just remember that idea of backdraft. Being kind to yourself, allowing yourself kindness and care even when you feel like you should just be pushing through.
Right.
It might initially bring up some uncomfortable feelings or old pain for some people.
Right.
But leaning into that discomfort with kindness is actually part of making the necessary space for healing and ultimately for more sustainable well-being and, yes, for joy.
So as you finish listening to this deep dive, maybe take just a moment to ponder that. What small act of kindness or maybe glimmer of joy could you offer yourself today? Right now, no matter how stressed you feel, even if it feels counterintuitive, even if it's just for 5 minutes, What small step could you take to start cultivating that resilience?